Hello, welcome everybody to today's live stream from the Truth Proof channel. This is our first stream, as you probably noticed, our first stream of 2021. Now, who knows what this year is going to hold for us all, and if it's anything like last year, I can only use the awful word, it's going to be shit. But nevertheless, we endeavour to do what we do. And today's live stream, we have got a great guest on tonight, Mr. Mark Farnell, as you probably saw on the title card, and he's talking to Paul. Now, I've got to say at this point that show was pre-recorded because Mark couldn't come on at this time of night for the live stream. So we pre-recorded the show. Also, we've got Mr. Paul Sinclair on, who is live. So what we're going to do, we're going to bring in, see if we can bring in Paul. Hi, Paul. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Les, and hello everyone to 2021. And yeah, I'm looking forward to listening to Mark. I know that I did the show with him, but I can't remember everything that we spoke about, but I enjoyed it. Yeah, Mark had some interesting things to say, so it were a bit long overdue, and I think you'll enjoy it tonight. But first of all, anybody that's got any sightings, reports, fire them over to us. We'll do our best to treat them with respect and get to you guys. And there's been a few things happening. Despite lockdown and obviously the COVID restrictions, I am sort of still allowed to go for a walk with one person, as we all are. And I have been getting up to the cliff tops of Bempton and the surrounding area. We might have touched on a few weeks ago the psionics camera sighting. Anybody not familiar with that type of camera? It's an excellent low light camera that one of my friends Amanda has got, and I've got to get one myself. On this occasion, this is, if you look on the Truth Proof website, you'll see the actual date, but there was 3 of us, and Amanda had brought her camera up specifically to show it to Steve Ashbridge, who was with us. Having a look through this camera, there's 2 spheres of light in the sky behind us, inland, very close to the RAF base. Let me just stress, I don't think they were directly over it. They could have been a mile away, but they were over the base. But the important thing to note is, and I do apologise if we talked about this last time, but the important thing to note is the camera could see them and we couldn't. So there's an excellent bit of kit. I'm just doing a bit of an advert for them. I don't know why, unless they want to buy me a camera. But I mean, I've got that expensive thermal camera. We put that on. Nothing. Could not detect these lights. All in all, Amanda got 6.5, I think about 6.5 minutes of footage as they moved from right to left. At one point, there was 4 of these spheres in the screen, although as the camera was watching them, as though while Amanda was filming them, she could only see 2. It's only on closer analysis, breaking them down, that 3 appear. So that's a good bit of footage. There were more before that. There were a little bit at Carnaby, this jeweled thing that was seen in the sky. He described it as looking like a cluster of red diamonds in the sky. But then I got a call from a Bempton resident last week. There were tons of jet activity, and I could hear this while I were actually on my laptop in kitchen, but I really didn't feel like going out, if I'm being truthful. And he told me that he'd gone out to look at the jets, and whilst he's looking up at the jets, there's 4 jets doing big circles in the sky around a green orb. I didn't see this. He shouted inside for his wife to come out. I've spoke to them both. She saw it and claims it was a green orb and it then eventually shot out to sea. And in their words, it were playing with the jets. Once again, we've only got these people's word. No reason to disbelieve them. They rang me. I didn't sort of search for anything connected to the jets. But on the strength of that, if we've time to do this before our live stream, Les, have we? On the following night, I went up to Bempton. It's taped off, people, so anybody thinking of visiting, obviously you can't come out of your areas anyway due to the restrictions of COVID, but the actual car park and the surrounding area is taped off. So we had to park in two cars. We had to park in some trees, close to some trees. A bit vulnerable cars is the best way to say it. Even though you're in a remote car park, you are actually in a car park when you're parked near the visitor centre. So we proceeded to walk down to the cliffs. Met this guy at 6:30, and at approximately, I don't know, 6:40, we're midway along this cliff path, and I look up to the visitor centre and the trees beyond where our cars are parked. And I saw a light, a whitish blue light, and I said to this guy, I'm keen not to say his name, and he's a good friend, but he's just not wanting his name out. And I said, I've seen a light up there. So we stopped. We just stopped in his tracks, and we're looking up into the darkness. Bearing in mind, people, that the lane is single track with no trees either side until you get to this area. So it's three-quarters of a mile long. If a car comes up it, you're going to see it a few minutes before its headlights. Nothing. Just saw this odd light in trees. As we stood there, we see the light again. Then it moved and we saw it one more time. His exact words were, do you think it'll be the police? Should we go back and tell them that, you know, we're not up to no good or anything, we're just taking our exercise? So that's what we agreed to do. And bearing in mind, it had only took 5 to 10 minutes to walk down the path, so we set off walking back. The light appeared again. Midway up the path, we saw it again, but this time it was blue. And without sounding like a cliche, it looked the same colour as the top of a police car, but it weren't strobing. It was just a tennis ball sized blue light that was just there in trees. We didn't stop them to study it or see what happened. We carried on walking, keeping our lights off. When we got to the cars, there's nothing. And we got to the cars within 2 or 3 minutes of seeing the blue light, and there's nothing. No cars have left. There's just nothing to be seen. So I got the thermal camera out again. It has its uses, even though it's not it's not brilliant for everything. But obviously, if there's an heat signature, if there's a person or a large heat signature, we're going to pick it up. We scanned the area. We walked out of the compound up onto Cliff Lane. Quarter of a way down it, looking, there's nothing. So we can't explain this light. We walked back, but this guy were a bit unnerved. He's got his cars and me don't really mean a great deal. So I have an Honda, which is decent. It starts okay, but this guy's got a lot newer car than me. He didn't fancy leaving it and being too far away. So we just walked on legally towards the RAF base, but more in line with the cars. And we stood there. I don't know, half an hour passed. There's a spear of orange light out at sea. This is where it. Obviously, everything I've said, people, now is only my word, but this is where it becomes interesting, because the people I'm going to mention now can be found on Facebook if you wanted to mention them. I don't think they'll mind. And I don't know, another few minutes passed, and suddenly the monstrous globe of orange light lit up just off Flamborough Head. Didn't fly from anywhere, it just lit up. Don't have time to get my camera out. It's gone. 5 to 8 seconds, it's just dissipated. Seems to implode. And we're sort of really animated. We've seen something. That's what it's about for us, and that's what it's about for the majority of people, I should imagine, listening to us talk now. And most of you will have had experiences of your own. So for me, the blue light up in the trees, and when I say up in the trees, just where the trees were the most intriguing. I can't explain that, but the orange lights. Obviously, we've been chasing these things for years, myself and Steve Ashbridge, back from 2004. So, I don't know, a few minutes past, my mobile goes, and it's a guy from Scarborough who's walking his dog on the beach. I think he was with his wife, called Steve Jackson. He was on my Facebook, on the friends list thing. And he said, Paul, I'm just looking towards Flamborough and Bempton. I've just seen a monstrous orange light. I meant to say huge, it's me that say monstrous, but huge orange light up. I said, yeah, we've seen it, mate. Honestly, I said, incredible. We've had a sort of, not up close and personal, but we're a lot closer than Scarborough. Hangs up the phone. I get another call then from Chris Wright in Scarborough once again. this guy's looking at the sky from his bedroom window, and he's seen it. So he doesn't tell us what it is. It kind of tells you that this stuff is happening. So that's just a few reports. On the 20th, which is Wednesday, I got a brilliant report from a place called Hutton Cranswick. A guy driving along the road, I think time was 6:20. We can talk about this more next week. I'll try and gather more information if we're fortunate enough to do a live stream next week, which I believe that's what me and Les are going to do. And he said a red disc passed the top of his car. Said there were other motorists on the road. So we've put it on the truthproof.uk website, along with these other sightings as well, if you want to look. And he said it had two green spinning things at the side of it. I missed the green out on the website, and we'll add those little bits. There's a few more bits of information to pick up from this sighting yet, and so I'm sort of quite, I'm quite. I wouldn't say excited. That's a bit sad, but I'm really sort of animated that we're still, even despite lockdown, despite everybody being trapped in their houses and just down about the way things are with life at the moment. This subject that me and Les, few people watching this live stream are all immersed in, it doesn't obey the COVID rules. It's still happening, So
yeah, and I was just going to mention that, Paul. Do you think there's any correlation to where the lockdown and then you're getting all these lights orbs sightings and what have you?
I don't think anything's affecting it. There's, if you want to jump to the live stream, the recording with Mark Farnell, which I know is what we've sort of planned to do, or I can just tell you about one more thing. I haven't got the date for it, or do you want to jump to that, Les?
No, you can carry on, Paul.
Went to North Landing car park last week. Two cars, obviously two people, were taking us exercise, as you do. I think we arrived about 7 o'clock. And Google the place, people, if you're not familiar with North Landing car park. It's the place where the guy took that amazing photograph for us of the spheres of light, which is on the Truth Proof website. And he took that probably 5-6 weeks ago, but the same spot. So we parked up there, and from there we proceeded to walk to the top of the car park. You go down into a ravine. The ravine's called Holmes's Gut. Up the ravine, and then you head on towards Bempton. There's two rock anglers fishing. They've gone down the cliffs. I'm not sure if they went down on ropes. There used to be ropes there. I'm not sure if there is now. It takes them halfway down, so the closer, they don't have to cast out as far. The closer to what they consider the action, the sea angling. There's a monstrous tide on. It's sort of right up the beach in North Landing Cove. So I'm looking at these two rock anglers, so I'll have to take some frame captures from the thermal imaging because you couldn't see them unless they flicked the lights on. They were just down there. They're braver people than me because they call this ledge that they were stood on the slip trench. That's the local terminology for what they were stood on. And I've a guy called Mick Sigson to thank for giving me all these references to the local sort of lingo, what they call these things, such as Holmes's Gut and the slip trench. I don't know whether these fishermen, because there's two of them, and obviously they stood fairly close together. I can't say how close because I didn't go down the cliffs. Wondered if we were police, because as we saw the lights as we approached, and then lights went off, and a short time later they left. We saw them going up the cliff, an odd glint of an headlight, and they went in the direction of Thornick Bay. Well, me and this guy stopped. We'd done his walk. We didn't want to sort of break any rules, and we decided to slowly walk back. When we got to the top of the steps of what we've called Holmes's Gut, and we stood looking into the cove, and here's me with me sort of sadness. I've done a bit of a measuring on Google Earth. It's 650 feet from the foot of the beach to the edge of the cliffs, and it's approximately 450 feet wide. So that is the size roughly of 2 football pitches, which will make sense in a moment. It's totally dark. We're looking at this cove in darkness. It lit up. The surface of the sea, the cliffs, both sides lit up. Bang. And we're just looking at it. I've got thermal camera, I've got the Sony camera, I don't get them out of the bag. Here's a good reference. The guy who's supposed to be out there filming it. I was that stunned by what I was looking at. I said, this guy's real broad Yorkshire. Can that swear word see that? And we watched it, and we think it lasted for 8 to 10 seconds and then switched off. So, Christ, I still didn't get camera out. So I should have done. If I'd have got the camera out and carried on filming, we wouldn't have got a UFO. We wouldn't have got a sighting of something. But it happened again. And I just have not a clue. My feeling is that the light did not come up from under the sea. But Google North Landing Cove, the bay. It filled the bay, both sides and the surface of the sea. Now, what kind of light source or energy would be needed to do an area the size of 2 football pitches with cliffs that range from 60 to 70 feet to 120 feet there, because they're quite low there. They slowly get steeper and steeper going towards Bempton, Buckton and Speeton. So there you have it. In middle of nowhere, if you like, because there were nobody else there, dead of night, not that late, but who's going to see these things? I even questioned myself, thinking, should I talk about this? I'm seeing this stuff. That's why I'm keen to impress the guys in Scarborough. Phoned us. Yes, they'd seen it. The guy I was with doesn't really want to talk about it. Not out of, I don't know, not out of worry. It's just the stigma attached to. He's interested, but he just don't want people to know that he's interested in the subject, which is strange because he's a good friend as well. But so there you go. We've rambled on, or I have, for 20 minutes, and I've taken Mark Farnell's time up, so I do apologise. So I'm going to hand it over to Les now. But thanks, people, and let's hope we can get some of these live streams, kick-started and up and running in the future.
Yeah, I was just going to mention one thing, Paul. Is when you said you spoke to a guy yesterday because of the sighting, what he saw, and it just amazes me the amount of people who just don't want to talk about it. So, I mean, if you amplify this figure up, there must be thousands and thousands of people out there who don't actually mention anything what they've seen, and potentially all that information's got, well, it never comes out, does it?
You make a great point, Les. There's so many people that, like you've just said, that just don't want to. And it's weird because this is not disrespecting these people, but they're actually being disingenuous to themselves because they see something that's beyond what they can believe. Or is it more a fact of they see something that is beyond what they believe they dare tell people because no one else will believe it? There's something else going on. It's difficult. It's not just the fear of ridicule. I used to think it was just the fear of ridicule that people suppress these sightings and don't talk about them. But I actually believe that something else is happening. There's some other process at work. When people see things and before they actually see the object, they get this overwhelming feeling of fear. That means that whatever they're going to come into contact with, whether the phenomena knowingly does it or unknowingly, is affecting something within the mental capacity of the person.
Do you think it's fear or just like disbelief that they can't believe their own senses are conveying this information?
It could be, but then, Les, we've been once again. None of us can be that. I don't mean that's stupid. That's wrong. We know you can say, "Oh, I saw it and it was unbelievable," but you still can't deny what you've seen. Do you know if it were a crime and you'd never seen? We don't go into detail, but we've never seen something horrific before. We wouldn't deny it. I suppose some people would. That's why crimes remain unsolved and things for years and years. But if something happened on the street, we wouldn't deny it. There'd be droves of people stepping forward. If there were a group of people looking up at the sky and something of biblical proportions appeared, not everybody's going to want to admit to it. I don't know. I ain't got the answer, but I do think that there's something else going on.
Well, do you think actually people sort of like sit and wait and see if the man comes to any other conclusion. They might wait a week, they might wait a month, they might wait a year,
Probably
they might wait
do,
2 years.
Yeah.
Before actually they think, hang on, no, this was real. So in other words, the time frame that they witness it to the time frame that they tell these things. I mean, just look at some of the famous cases out there where they didn't come for years afterwards.
Yeah.
And tell the story.
This is true, and that's a valid reason. That could be one of the reasons. When you look at Hummonby, sorry, not Hummonby, apologies. Hummonby 1998 is sort of a good example. But what I meant to say, well, Wilsthorpe 2009. The old couple that contacted me were prompted by a newspaper article, me asking for information in I think it was 2014, and then this year, let's jump back, 2020, late 2020, I was contacted by another lady, similar time frame, literally 300 or 400 yards away from where all this happened. The UFO paralleling her down side of the road, her and her colleague as they came home from work. Amazing sightings. But the reason, I don't get my head around the reason why when somebody's seen something that's absolutely life-changing, or is life-changing the word, that they're that disingenuous to themselves, I think, that they're refusing to admit what they've seen. And I say this and then I contradict myself, because there were so many years where I never talked about my childhood experiences. So it's difficult. I mean, I think we all need a psychiatrist. I mean, maybe I do. Maybe I should have said that, but it's crazy, because the things that you see are so off the scale of what is considered normal.
Yeah, well, yeah. Thanks for that, Paul. So just to move on, we'll just do a little bit of housekeeping here then, Paul.
Okay.
I think we're just going to give a plug to your... Oh, right, I'll get there eventually. Let's have a look. Yeah, your Truth Proof page has got a Truth Proof report forum on there, which you've set up for people to report any sightings or any anomalies or anything that's mysteriously related. We don't want, obviously you don't want reports of dogs going missing, Paul, do you, on there? So, and so basically, yeah, so there is a page there for people to visit, and
Les, most of those things I spoke about today are on the reports page.
Yes.
Yeah. I must admit, people, I've got Don Lodge to thank for putting all this information out and putting this website together. Massive thank you to Don, as he's the guy that helps me with my punctuation, my terrible spelling, and yeah, it's all good. I've a lot of help, and yourself, Les. It's all good.
Okay, and then I just want to move to an important conference this year, set up by Mr. Chris Evers from OLM magazine, and it's the 4th Encounter OLM 2021 conference. Now, I do have information from Chris, and he's telling us up to this moment in time, this will be a ticketed event. He'll make further decisions round about May time if there's any change due to some of the guests flying in, and so obviously there's going to be some flying restrictions there. Quarantine may be involved, in which case Chris has told me that he will review this in May. So if anybody is still interested in going there, then that's the situation so far. Okay, and that's it. So we'll just have a quick look at the chat then, Paul, and then we'll just welcome all these good people in the chat to this stream. A lot of our favourites are in there. As I say, if you want to do some shout outs.
Well, it's just nice. It's so good that we've got so many supportive people, and we've all got a common interest, and that is unexplained phenomena, be it cryptid related, UFOs, ghosts, whatever you're into. I mean, I don't mean we cater for it all, but we don't shun anything if it's genuine and true unexplained phenomena. And I mean, there's Tino's always there, Tim, Deborah. I mean, Deborah's been through to to see me. We've spent the day at Flamborough. Tino's been, Tim's been. It's brilliant to see people so supportive, Les. And obviously we won't have as many people in tonight because we've people. It's not Les. We've just let it slip a little bit. I've had a few issues, few things to deal with. I won't say life-changing issues at all, but I've just had things to deal with, and I think we all have a little bit. I mean, none of us are on our own with what's happening with state of world at the moment. But like I said earlier, let's just hope we can kickstart these live streams and get into some good interactive chat. I really like the questions when people sort of fire questions and put me on the spot, or put Les on the spot, or whoever we've got to talk to. It's challenging, and I think it makes for a better discussion rather than me just firing reports off like a machine. I prefer the questions.
Yeah.
So on that note, if people want to message Les or myself or Leslie Kirby, who helps a lot in background with questions, please message us with any questions. Don't have to be related to what we spoke to tonight, and we'll try and get through them next week.
Yeah, I think that's a good way forward. If we get the questions previous to the stream, obviously it gives us a chance to filter out then what we can talk about and probably group them in certain groups so we can stay on the same theme, which is probably good.
Yeah.
So basically, I think we're just got to backtrack a little bit here, Paul. We may have some people in from different parts of the world. So if we do, I think probably you ought to say of where all this phenomena is happening and where you are based for the people who don't know.
Well, we're based, me and you, Les, in East Yorkshire. I am primarily, but the research extends low into East Yorkshire, Humberside, up into North Yorkshire, around Scarborough, and just all the way up and down the coast of East and North England. And but we're not limiting ourselves to reports just from these areas, because I do realise that there's absolutely incredible things being seen and experienced from the other parts of the UK and other parts of the world. And we can't be so sort of single-tracked and focused and to think, oh, we're going to deal with these East and North Yorkshire people, because we'd be missing out on some fabulous information that could put the things we're looking into here, pieces of the puzzle, it could join things up.
Yeah, that's true. Right. I think we're at the point now where we will run with the pre-recorded interview you did with Mr. Mark Farnell, and we will catch everybody in a live stream next week for definite, unless something really terrible crops up, Paul, which we hope it doesn't. But yeah, we'll be on a live stream next week, and we'll be copying these questions down if you put any in the chat, as Paul said.
Yeah, please.
And looking at them next week as well, so that'd be great. But yeah, some really interesting news from the sightings you had at Bempton, Paul, and Flamborough and North London at Flamborough.
Well, obviously, I'll not just do a repeat, but I'll try and go into some of them in a little bit more detail, or if based on what I've spoke about tonight, anybody's got any questions, we'll go with it. I mean, Lee Roscoe's just said, and thanks, Lee, questions in capital letters, please. That way we'll pick them up, or Leslie Kirby will, because she'll be watching this and she'll just gather the questions, and that's great. And look forward to speaking with you guys next week. And please tell me, people, if I'm still on screen when Mark Farnell comes on. I hope it all flips over nice. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just endorse that. Yeah, big thank you to Leslie Kirby. She usually monitors all the chats along with our moderator on there. But this was kind of a last minute thing for you to come on, Paul. Initially, it was going to be me, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Only to introduce the film, but you kindly found a little bit of time after you combed your hair.
Yeah. Well, you
combed your hair, yeah.
And we just touched on the fact that Andy normally moderates for us, and apologies to Andy because I've not even had time to tell him.
Yeah, we're sorry about that. It was kind of a last minute thing put together that me and Paul actually came on today. But really, at the end of the day, we wanted to talk to you good people on the chat. And it's great that you're in here now. So it's been It's been really good. Keep your chat going if you like throughout through the interview. As I say, it is a pre-recorded stream, so we'll see you later.
And
okay?
Just before you go, questions about this week's chat, Mark, directed towards Mark Farnell.
Yes.
And
Yes.
we'll put them to Mark and try and answer them next week as well.
Yeah. Okay. We'll catch you later, guys.
Thank you very much, Les. And today we're going to be talking to Mark Farnell, who I think a lot of the people who join us in the chat room when we're doing a live stream or will view this later will know. And Mark has got a particularly interesting topic to talk about today. Welcome, Mark, and you're going to be talking to us about the documentary that you're making, Wicca, the trial of the Pendle witches, I believe. I mean, you can refresh us with the exact title, but I think we're there, aren't we?
Yeah, pretty much. Wicca, the trial of 1612. It's one that's been in production for well over a year because of this pandemic and everything. It's put a halt on a lot of things really that I was hoping to do. I've got 3 other documentaries to get on with as well, and it's just not looking good at the moment. So all my attention at the moment is trying to get this Pendle one done because I'm dealing with information that's not been heard of before, which is exciting really because I want to say, but I don't want to ruin anything.
No, you just keep us in suspense, Mark. You know, obviously you can fill us in on bits of it, but obviously this pandemic, this COVID, it's affected everybody. It's affected myself and Les with Wolfland, you know, the Dark Forest project. And
Right.
has it stopped you interviewing witnesses then, these key witnesses?
It has. I've got 2 solid interviews that I've done. One of which I'm redoing with Emma Dawes because, to be honest with you, I could never get the audio perfectly right. So I've gone and purchased myself some quality audio equipment, and she's accepted on doing the interview again after this pandemic. At least sees the light at the end of the tunnel, really. So it's something to look forward to. But as for the other interviews, it's touch and go really, because in the place I go to in Pendle, there's a lot of doors closed in my face on it. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want any association with it. It's as though there's a curse around it. They don't want to speak because it might implement them in some way or other. But you know, the information I'm getting at the moment from my historian who's helping me out, his name's Thomas Broad, and the stuff he's found out is frightening. That's why I want to tell you, but I can't. I've got to watch what I say.
And it's also good. There's a quality there, Mark, that I pick up on you, that you're doing the documentary, but you're not claiming all the credit for it. You've just dropped this guy's name in and who's doing you a massive service, and
yes.
that's rare. That because you get a lot of people who just want to take all the glory for themselves. And I can see that you're not doing that because we've spoke about it in the past. These witnesses, Mark, how many are you going to have to speak to, do you think, before you get what you want?
I've got, in the pipeline, I've got 3 that I'm waiting to hear answers from. They've not given me a yes or no. But all in all, there's a good 11 people.
Really?
That I say they're willing. At the moment, it's just this pandemic. It's like they might change their mind at some point. I don't know, but at the moment, it's kept in the big question mark line at the moment. But the people I'm speaking to, or rather, I'm going to be interviewing, more historians of the area, the local area, from Lancaster to Colne. That covers all the way through to Pendle itself. But as I said, my historian, Thomas Broad, he's scared me really with the stuff he's found, because it's a whole new story completely. It's never been heard before. And
Mark, have you managed to trace any of the ancestors?
Yes, I've got in contact with a relation of the Nutter family, but she lives in Australia now. She said she'd like to get interviewed, but it'll be over Skype, or that sort of frame. And I'm thinking, I wouldn't mind, but if they are real witches, I'd rather not. But the thing is, it's fascinating. The actual story behind it. The more I'm working into it or finding out, it's putting the story together in a more understandable way of why and the fears they must have been feeling at the time. Those 10 people who was executed. It's
without giving the sort of real core pieces of information that you're going to save for documentary out.
Yeah.
Let's get into it. Let's start. Is it 1612 and just slowly work through it, Mark? Give us every detail that you possibly can without giving away too much information. I know you're saving it for the documentary.
Yeah. Tricky. It's tricky because I don't want to let slip, and I know I will do. It's where to begin. It's where to begin. That's safe to begin. Obviously, the idea of it is it all came from the Pendle, which I mentioned before, Alice device, and that's where the witch elm came from. The witches, don't mess with them.
He's the accuser. He's the original accuser.
Yeah. But I found out about Alice Nutter, and what scares me more about that is Alice Nutter was a very rich person. She had an estate. She was, she wasn't, in that sort of witchiness. We don't know why the pathway went to that point where she got executed, because she had money. She owned most of the land in Pendle, and that which it puts on another bracket of where this witch part, was it real? Were they really witches? For people to go from money to claiming that the witches, it's in a time of the 16th century. I mean, if you sneezed wrong, you was a witch. You know what I mean? Things then, it was, if you could walk backwards, you'd have been dead for being a witch, because you can't walk backwards. You
would have thought though, then Alice Nutter would have been in it, like you just said, because she was wealthy, she'd have been in a position to have avoided that.
Absolutely,
unless members of her family thought it was a good idea to dispose of this woman, because the inheritance would come to them. I mean, I don't know any of this, I really don't. But so how much do you think, or do you attribute to gossip and rumor that sort of built up like Chinese whispers, actual acts of what we would term magic and incantations?
Yeah, well, it comes down. I mean, obviously, King James I, he was superstitious anyway. He'd only come into power, and he was Scottish. So he was the King of England, and he was Scottish. And at the time, Scotland and England didn't see eye to eye at all. I mean, you just need to watch Braveheart to know that. It's people didn't abide with the Scottish, and the Scottish didn't abide with the English. But he came to power, obviously knowing what Guy Fawkes had tried to do, which wouldn't have helped him in his superstition of what needed to be done. He went out of his way to make sure that he wrote a book, and I can't remember the demology, I think it's called. I can't remember the book he wrote, which
Demonology.
Yeah, I think it is Demonology that he wrote, and it speculates all the witches that he thought that he worried about, because he didn't want to lose power, he didn't want to lose his throne, he didn't, but it's come to light as well because of my historian that he had mental health issues as well, which a lot of people don't know of. So he wasn't thinking straight at all throughout the majority of his reign. And when Guy Fawkes' problem took place, he thought, right, I need to see to this. We need to get rid of all the witches that have these ideas, these incantations that they want to get rid of me. I want them out of the country. I want them gone. And when he found out about Alice Device, who did the Pendle, it went beyond. So he sent out the General Witch Hunter. The General Witch Finder. And then it went from that to I've forgotten his name, Hopkins, I think his name was. I can't remember his first name, but he was another quite menacing type executor, shall we say, but he went out looking for them himself with a band of...
So these people, they really, Matt, they had free reign really to pick and choose who they deemed was a witch, which would be unfortunate for somebody that they just took a dislike to, wouldn't it?
It was, and what adds on as well is he said to his generals who was going out to do these, do what you will. If you have to do it, do it. So it was free reins for him. It was a massacre, really. You know, he was going around, and it was, you know, just, you know, if like I said, if they walked differently, if they spoke differently, you know, he didn't want any bother with them. He thought, because women back then in the 16th century, they didn't have brains. That's how it was. That's how it was dealt with. Women don't have brains.
But you know, in the 16th century, and that's how it was dealt with. Sorry.
Yeah, they don't have brains, so you know, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Yeah. And that time in court, where Janet Device stood up in court, the 9-year-old little girl, she stood up and she screamed the whole courtroom down, saying, "I want my mother, my sister, and my brother. They're all witches. My grandmother, who was Old Mother Demdike, I want them gone. I want them out the way. They're witches. Get them." And this is the wrong fact. And I don't understand why she would have done that. Well, she never gained anywhere from doing that, because the same fate happened to her 10 or 15 years later in York.
Could it have been just pure fear? Could she have been threatened?
She was Demdike, Mother Demdike. She was known to be quite, you know, prim and proper, really, but not in the context of, oh, I've got to do things right. She does everything. If you pretty much, if you went on her wrong side, she'd rather you pay the price. She's that type.
What kind of? We know that how many were in the Pendle witches? How many were executed?
There was 11 that was brought up in charges, but one got off from being killed. Now I'm still finding out why he got off. Oh, fire alarm's going off. 1 second. No problem. What's happened?
Well, short interlude there, people, and we're finding out about the Pendle witches. And I think Mark's going to do this interview as the house burns down around him, that shows dedication. Nice.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, that's all right. We're back in action.
Yeah. Sorry, where were we?
There were 11 in total.
Yeah, there was 11. I'm finding out why the 11th was let off from being executed. Now I know it was a gentleman. It was a man, and I don't know. I just don't understand why he got off with it, because he was having the same charges brought to him as all the others were. So it
could have been, in today's terms, it could have been an informer. He could have, you know,
well have been. He could have pointed the finger. He could have done anything. Yeah.
And the actual executions, without being too gory, were they hung? Well, you know.
Yeah, they were hung. Unfortunately, they weren't hung, dropped from the platform to be hung. They were hung, so they strangled to death.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
Which is awful. And we're talking about children at age 16 getting it as well, and this is disgraceful. It's awful. But they got hung at Gallows Hill, which is now Williamson Park in Lancaster, which I've got an investigation to go to. I've had 2. I've been there twice. I'm going to be going there again for the 3rd time, hopefully do an all-nighter when I'm there this time, just to see if there's anything spooky there. But
well, good point, Mark. Out of interest, have you had any strange experiences that you think might be attributed to your investigation into the Pendle case?
I've always had an interest in it, to be honest, right. because it's so local to me. It's only 30 minutes drive away from where I live. It's not far at all. But the whole aspect, I know that, you know, 1612, the trial of the witches of 1612, it's known worldwide. That, you know, like the Salem witches, for instance, it's the same principle over here with the Pendle. You know, I don't know, but because it's so unknown, and why they got executed because nothing's been covered. I've watched documentaries before, and they're not answering the questions you want them to answer. You want them to get into the story. Who were these people? Why were they seeing, life in that sort of way of, and going about that sort of way? Why were they doing this? With them being warring families, why were they warring? I'd like to get into the nuts and crannies of what brought them together and being, a family that fraud together. It was, they were terrible.
What were they accused of, Mark?
Say again.
What were they accused of? Just give us an example of some of the things the deeds that they'd allegedly done.
Child murder. They murdered. They believe they were murdered between 3 to 5 people each that lived in the local community. I'm still doing a lot of, and the thing is, the more I'm reading into it, the more I'm finding out what they were charged with. Now, Thomas, who's doing the story, he's got this file, and it's all the original sort of notes. I don't know how he's got them, but he's got like copies of the original notes. It's hard to read because it's old English. It's written differently, so we're piecing together bits of that, of what was going on. But by the looks of it, the majority of it was murder and murder and theft, basically. Because back in the day of 1612, these were poor people that lived in the area. They'd have done anything to get meat on the table, to get a meal in them. They'd have done anything. They were beggars. They begged for food. They begged for money. They did all that sort of thing. But to go from that point to being witches, that's the bridge I want to cross. I want to get to that of why they had gone to that level.
Were any of them accused of? Were any of them accused of being able to transform? Or,
yes.
Or did that? Yes. All right. So
yes, they believe Mother Demdike. She was the one who allegedly. That there's some I've read, and I believe that that she was able to transform into some sort of dog, basically. It looked like a black dog.
Right.
Which is, again, it's interesting. Why would she transform? But I'm finding these bits together and piecing them together of why. But by the sound of what I'm getting, it's just tick for tack what this town had on them. It's just they just didn't like them, so they were making things up. They were going along things that may have happened. They may, and over time, Chinese whispers, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It's.
So a lot of these things, then, Mark. I mean, there's probably rational explanations for a lot of it, and the actual magical element of it, it's minor compared to what they were accused of, isn't it? Now you're actually getting down to the nuts and bolts of it. Have you come across anything, though, that's made you think something really strange was happening here?
Yes, I have, and the main one was a cottage they found. And it was found, I'm not sure how many years ago, it was not long ago, but they found a cottage that was beside Black Moss Reservoir. And it's a cottage that when they were digging around, and the foundations were there, but they found a room. They found a small room that was bricked around. So it was like a tomb.
Below ground?
Inside this tomb, there was a cat that were buried. That was there. They sacrificed the cats. So again, it puts the speculation of, were they real? Something was going on. So if they're doing that, that's just on the weird side of things. So if they're doing that, maybe there's some truth to the witch part.
I'm sort of green as grass with the Pendle witches case, and I know you're looking into it. But can you tell us a little bit then about the familiars?
The familiars, yes. They were known to have followed those who were practicing it, which was
sorry, Mark, I'm butting in again. For anybody, it's just a name to me. Explain what they were to the listener, please.
Demdikes.
Yeah, and the familiars.
The familiars was like a demonic force that followed them. It was like the dark, basically, that followed them around. Which probably, with what I'm finding out at the moment, it's coming to terms that this dark is just probably created by the people that, don't go near her, she's bad trouble, don't go, and it goes from that. But when animals are getting taken and they're being slaughtered, and you know, and it just puts a whole new bridge on the point, you know, because but these familiars were mainly dogs, but there was dogs, there were rabbits, and I think it was a hare as well.
Yeah.
That they were able to see, but these weren't animals that we see them as. These were demons basically,
right?
And they basically appeared with the person who was going to meet their end, basically. That you're close to meeting your death, like the Black Shuck, pretty much.
Yeah. Well, that's where I'm going with this. That's what I'm thinking. We've got this demonic hound, and we've got reference to that all along the East Yorkshire coast. In Lincolnshire, we've got it inland, and you know, there's connections, or you know, little connections to it, even if it doesn't link directly to this apparition, this mythical hound.
Yeah. It's so it puts in some truth to it, really, in a way, because why would they incorporate? Oh, it's a black hound that follows. It's maybe, I mean, you know, and people know that the black hound is a bad omen. To this day, everybody knows it's, you know, you see the black dog, something bad's either going to happen or it's just happened. You know, it's one of the two. But yeah, the familiar wise, they usually appeared before the fates of the people that were basically going to meet their end. Basically, you know,
so they were a portent of doom.
Yeah,
so I'm assuming then is the documentation that the people who died or suffered some horrific injury actually saw these things before, because otherwise nobody'd know.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, the main one was John Law, because he died several months after this happened, and he passed it on to his son. He told his son what he saw, and I'm forgetting his son's name, but his son took, you know, Alice Device, you know, what happened there to the courts. He's the one who sent it all to the court, saying something needs to happen. My dad's been cursed by this lady, this woman, and you know, apparently she walks in her footsteps is a dog that walks behind, and it's a big dog. So it comes into it of what was this animal? There was something there must have been. But again,
you know, I'm getting from this, Mark, and as much as it's intriguing, there's a lot of maliciousness from people of the day rather than actual.
Yeah, like I said, it's a lot of it is tick for tack.
Yeah,
it's you said this, I said that, and it's backfiring on that part. But there's a lot of stuff. I mean, like I said, I want to tell you about what I found out, but I can't. And it's what's scary is that it's still not been closed. It's not been closed at all. They got rid of, you know, they got executed, and then that was it. The book shut when they got executed. Nobody else knew anything else from it.
Right.
It's just like, oh, it was this, that's what happened. This is what happened. But when you read these articles that I'm reading, that's the excitement.
What's the reaction that you've had then from the locals or from people that you've approached? I know you've got some help.
Yes.
But it sounds like it's not been positive.
It's not been easy. It's you've seen The Wicker Man. Yeah. That's pretty much how Pendle feels to me. I don't want to say anything wrong because I'll be in the Wicker. Yeah. But in that, it's as though they don't want. Now I don't know whether, and I've said this to Thomas, who's helping me, and Justin, another chap who's helping me as well, and and I've just said this. It's like this. They don't want to say, because maybe there's that belief that's still there from the past that's followed down through maybe generations.
Something, so.
Yeah. Maybe the crops won't produce well, or you know, they might lose money in the town or things like. So maybe that's probably why they're not, because they don't want to help you. They pretty much show that they'll smile and shut the door on you. It's when I went to St. Mary's Church, that's in Barley, and I spoke to Julie, who's the reverend there, and I felt like I was being interrogated. I felt I was being interrogated. I thought, I'm doing this for a non-profit educational purposes. I want people to know the true story of the Pendle witches, and she couldn't show me the door quick enough.
Do you think that's because what you were speaking about, you said she was the Reverend, was sort of averse and against her belief system, really? Do you think that could have been part of it?
It could have been, but how I worded it was basically the history. I was going on to the history of Pendle itself, because I know that the eye of God is on that church. It's on, I think it's on the east side of that church steeple, and it's a beautiful piece of art, you know. It's there, this eye, and it's to go into the conversation with this. She doesn't want to, but there was a church that was there before St. Mary's was built, and I've forgotten the name of it now. It's, you know, it's on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember the name of it, but that used to stand there, this church, and it had and that apparently was where one of the nutters, was it the nutters, or was it, you see, it's finding out who did who, because nobody knows yet. So I'm trying to piece together who would have done this. And apparently they dug up some bodies, the witches, to remove some teeth out of the people that have been buried, to do some sort of enchantment or whichever. But I still want to know who's done that, and I'm trying to piece together who that could have been.
Because by saying that, Mark, that, you know, then that throws it into realms of, they had a handle, they had some kind of insight on some genuine. Would it be a cult practice? To go to them lengths. That's a bit more than
I think it
of families.
Yeah, for the size of how this story's gone, there was a lot involved. Really, there was a lot, and not the witch side. We're talking about, you know, there was a lot involved that knew of this, and they were too scared to do anything. To, you know, so a lot of them closed the doors even then on it. They didn't want to know. But it's intriguing, really.
Do you think they were too scared, Mark, because of the thought that they might suffer some terrible fate, or too scared because they might become accused of being witches themselves? I mean,
there is that, yes. Yeah. There is that, because that's what I've been trying to get at, because there's something still going on around there, because they still have witches in the area.
Well, what's interesting, Mark, is the reception that you've had when inquiring and when trying to research this in a world basically that puts its hands up and doesn't believe in the things I'm looking into, the things you're looking into, yet they believe enough that they back away from talking about it, which is interesting in itself, isn't it? You know,
it is.
You know, just in this area, we've got there's a history on East Yorkshire coast and North Yorkshire of witchcraft and satanic ritual, should we say? And I've found that is probably the hardest thing to unearth out of everything that I've been looking into. And obviously you're hitting these similar, again, these doors.
It is. I'm probably having more doors closed on me than opened, really. Because you say one thing, you can't win by what you say. It feels like I've been pushed into a corner. No matter what I say, it's going to be the wrong thing. But there's no other way around it. And I've said to a few of them, I think, you know, you're living in Pendle. You've moved to Pendle. Now everybody knows of the Pendle witches. It's worldwide. It's known. It's so famous. It's, you know, and you don't want to talk about it. This is bringing tourists to your town. This is making you money in the long run. People are coming to see this. They want to know. And it's as though they just don't. I mean, when I was saying about Julie the Reverend, I was saying to her, you know, it's historical aspect, because I wanted to go into, you know, the Bronze Age, you know, because they found the Bronze Age graveyard on top of Pendle Hill, actually on the summit of it, which is quite interesting. But what I admire about it is people go to Pendle and they think, oh, the hill, you know, because of the witches. The witches were never at the hill. They never went to Pendle Hill. They lived in the surrounding villages beneath the hill itself. The hill had nothing pretty much to do with it at all.
So they didn't know rituals.
there is a carving called the Green Man, and it's got a sort of Bigfoot look to it. You know, it's there. You can see it, and I'm not sure whereabouts that is. I think it's more into Newchurch part of Pendle, and and it's how it looks. It's quite a rugged sort of man, but it's carved into stone. This stone sculpture of the Green Man, and it's just that, again, it adds on more interest, you know, because something was obviously going on here. Something was, but I just want the answers, and I think I'm getting the answers thanks to Thomas. I want to say I can't. I can't. I've got to watch what I say.
So do you think perhaps you've told us all that you really want to tell us on the Pendle Witches today, because you've just come to a fitting point when you said the carving of the Green Man, and if time we could move on. I don't want to stop you in your tracks, but we could move on to your unusual sighting that you had many years ago. Where do you want to go with that, Mark? Do you want to just carry on with Pendle, or?
Well, I've come to a comfortable end of the Pendle, because I can see Thomas. He's at the side of my ear, and he's saying, "Don't say a thing," because he's still finding bits out, and it's
put the brakes on. So, as you came to the Green Man, obviously, like you said, with the connotations to the wood woes, the alleged wild man that people claim to have seen in the UK, or even the werewolf type apparitions or creatures.
True.
You had a sighting of your own, Mark, and I'd love you to tell us about that, if you wouldn't mind.
Absolutely. Well, that happened in 1996 or 95 it was, and it was in the village I lived in called Tarleton. It was a village I was brought up in, so you know, you don't really expect anything like this to ever happen, you know, especially in where we actually witnessed it, because it was the area we always went to. It was the local woods. We always went there. That's where we played, you know, manhunt or something like that, you know, just what boys do, you know, just make rope swings and things like that, tree houses. But this one day we went there, and I was with three friends. Well, sorry, I was with two. There was three of us. I was with two friends, Sam Eden and Mark Hornby. Now, Sam went home early, so we're making an assault course through the woods. And it was a lovely day. It was a lovely afternoon, nice summer day. And he went home, but we carried on building this assault course, me and Mark. And we got to the end of building it, so we gave it a run round, see if it was any good. And it went right the way, well, not through the woods, but majority of the way through the woods, because it was not a big wood at all.
So what area are we talking, Mark? In acreage or miles?
Probably about 1.5 miles deep. It wasn't deep, but it was deep enough. You could if you didn't want to be seen, you could do that. You know, it wasn't. It was a lot bigger then than it is now, because they've got rid of a lot of the forest land part there. You know, it's mainly fields now and farmland that's there, which is a shame. But you're seeing these. But anyway, was there, and we'd gone through the assault course. We're going over it a few times, back and forth. We went, and it was the latter time we went to. We know there was something. I can't say what it was, but you feel it before you see anything. You just it went stupidly quiet, really, like nothing. You can't even hear a twig snapping, nothing at all. No animals, no birds, just dead silent. And I'm thinking, well, because you're only a kid at the time. I was only about 13 or 14 at the time, something like that.
Yeah.
Then I thought, I didn't think much of it.
Did you notice the silence, or did you? Was it something you talked about after?
He's the one who said it to me. He said, "God, it's how quiet is it?" Because he said it to me. I thought, yeah, now you've said, yeah, because I'd known it's been quiet. It's like, yeah, it's. But then the hairs on your back of your neck are standing up. You know something's it's wrong. Anyway, we went and we saw this person. Well, I thought it was a person, to my stupidity, and it wasn't. And it was only within 10-15 foot away. It wasn't far, and it was walking through the brush in front of us on the path. which is what I couldn't. It was walking on the actual pathway. And it came into a park clearing, so we dug down. There was like a fallen down tree, and it wasn't a big tree, it was just one I saw, but we dug down just to try and get a bit of a better look at whatever we were seeing. And it came to this clearing, and it wasn't tall. This whatever it wasn't tall, but it wasn't a person walking a dog. It was covered in hair, muscles on it. It was probably about 5.5 foot tall at a push. It wasn't tall at all, but stocky, really like hunched over. You could see a humpback type, like no neck. It was just the head on shoulders, and these shoulders were just, it just didn't add up in proportion, really. The shoulders were too big for, but it came in, and we saw, because we watched, as we were seeing it, we saw its right side as it was walking past, and then it stopped. I remember it stopping, and it turned, and it was one of them, the slowest turns I've ever, it put in more of a creep to it, I thought, but it stopped, but it slowly turned, and you could see it was trying to, I'm thinking, oh my God. Obviously, being a kid, you're keeping stum. I'm thinking, if I make a noise, it's going to know where I am. It's going
Did its body turn with its head, or just its head?
Its body turned. It's because it's like I said, you couldn't see. It was like in shadow, its face, but you could see parts of bits of cheekbone. And the jaw. The jaw just didn't look right to its proportion either. The jaw was really thick. The mouth part here, but it was further down, like here, but stocky. But you couldn't see much else, and you could see it was doing that, just trying to look. I'm thinking, oh, yeah, I was probably swearing a lot at the point. I'm thinking, and I looked up to my friend who was at the side of me here, and he was just transfixed by it. He was thinking, oh, and I'm thinking,
was this fear? Was this fear at this point?
I was, yes, but I still knew what I was doing. I thought, I was trying to work out what it was more so than anything. It's not a person. What is it? It's not a dog. It's not an animal. It's not a cow or anything like that. This is on 2 legs, and it stood right in front of, and it was stood at this point. You're talking about 12 foot away. It wasn't far at all. Close enough to know it wasn't a person. As it turned, and it made the grunt, groany sound it made, kind of like an animal would, just like to scare you out of the way, which it did very well. It made this sound, and I don't want to, because I'll embarrass myself doing the sound, because there's no way I can, because you felt
did the sound reverberate inside you, or?
Yeah, you felt it went right through you, and I'm thinking it made you want to cough, really. It just went through your chest. I thought, and I looked up again at Mark, and he looked down at me, and I'm thinking, I'm not waiting for him. He's either going to be in front of me, or he's going to be behind me. But either way, that thing is going to be behind me. And as long as you're behind me, Mark, I'm okay, because I'll get you first. But I shot, and I'd remember sprinting, and I don't think I've ran as fast we're talking about a mile from the actual entranceway, and I was there it felt like I was there in seconds. That fast, I just ran straight. I remember seeing twigs passing me. I was just running. That was it.
Did you look back?
No. I was, to be honest with you, I felt like a rock. My whole body just like frozen, like from above the waist. I couldn't really move. My legs could move. Christ, I was running, but I just wanted to get out of there quickly. And
had you got any sense that it were following you, Mark, or was it just pure adrenaline? You were away.
I was probably adrenaline. I was away, but we never left the wood. This is what makes it stupid, really, because I said I was young. We got to the sort of entranceway of the wood. We stopped. He caught up with me eventually, so I knew he'd have got him first, but it wasn't there, and I thought, that's fine. And the thing is, the bird sound started again by that point.
What I was going to ask. The mood changed then.
Yeah, you could hear the wilderness, basically. You could hear the wildlife and which wildlife, but the birds and things like that. and we got sticks. Me and my friend, we got sticks, and we went back on the track to try and see what it was, because we were fascinated by see what it was at a distance, obviously, but let's see if we can see it again. And we walked right the way around, and I've never walked around the wood as slowly in my life. I was looking up every single tree I passed, behind every shrub I passed. I wasn't taking any messing. And thing is, we got to the far end of the wood. We walked right the way around, but we went to the far end of the wood, and there's a pre-laid cornfield that's there, and it's not a big, it wasn't high, the corn, it was probably about 1 meter high, if that, and there was a trail. Mark noticed it. He went, there's a trail, and looked down, and it's like been flattened as though something had ran off to the other wood at the far end, because there was scattered round all over. And it wasn't far away, this other wood. It was probably about, you know, about 500, 600 feet away. It wasn't far at all. It was just the next wood. But the eeriness that you felt when you looked at that sort of runway walking there, you're thinking, whatever it is it you felt like it was watching you, even though you just don't know. But
what? Yeah. So have you spoke much to your friend over the years about this?
I've not spoken to him. I mean, I'm still friends with him. I haven't spoken to him about this for probably 4 or 5 years. About that, I've not spoken to. It was one, because it was the area that we lived in. It was only a small village, and we didn't want to be ridiculed, so we kept it to ourselves. We didn't want that. But
now, Mark, doing what you do now, like the documentary, the scope for something here, I should think, for you in future, has it fired you up to maybe ask a few questions in the village that you used to live in, or do you think it'd still be too embarrassing for you to do that?
Well, I found out about it through asking people, and they've said, "Oh, it's funny you've said that." And there was one chap who did say to me, he said, "It's funny you did say that, because I've forgotten his name. Is it I think his first name's Bernard. He was a guy who owns one of the farms. Bernard, whichever his surname was.
Yep.
In the late 70s, he was missing chickens. Chickens were getting taken off his. But he thinks there was no foxes that could get in there. It was you know, you'd had to open the door to get in to get one of these chickens out. There's no way an animal could get in there and get one out. Not these chickens were quite big chickens, and he was losing chickens apparently. Now I thought that's interesting. Would it have been anybody else? No, nobody lived. People didn't do that back in the 70s. They weren't.
No actual reports of anyone else seeing this. What you and your friend saw.
No, but a friend of my mother's said that she said that she went into that woods once. That woods that happened, which actually, funnily enough, has a backstory of witchcraft going on. They used to have a lot of witch, you know, it's been raided by the police several times from doing witchcraft. So something, maybe something dark in there is in there. I don't know, but my mum's friend, she went into the woods, and she'd lived there all her life. You know, we're talking, and she got lost. You can't get lost in that wood. It's a path. She said she was walking on this path. It's a change of subject, but she was walking on this path all the way around the wood, and it goes around the edge of the wood. It doesn't go through the wood, the path. It goes right round the edge. So the middle part is where the kids used to play and do whichever. But she went round the path, and the path stopped. She walked down, the path stopped, and she was surrounded by like bushes and stuff. She actually got lost. She couldn't make her way out of the wood. I'm thinking, this is amazing. You know,
almost like a time slip. There's somewhere she's not familiar with.
It's like all of a sudden she said the path, and she couldn't move because there were brambles, there were bushes. It was just surrounding her, and she went, I couldn't even, the path that I walked back on, I couldn't even find that. And I'm walking on the path. It's just the
So how does that apply then to what you saw? What do you think, Mark? You've said it's 1.5 miles in circumference, this wood, or thereabouts, or it was. What would this creature have weighed? Because we'll get back to the 1.5 miles in a moment. Would it have been description? It would have been 200 pound. Would it 170 pound?
It was stocky. It was stocky. I'm thinking probably. I mean, the side. I mean, I can set the arms on it because you can see the arms better than anywhere else. Yeah. But it's not the bicep here was just it was like your leg. It was like the thickness of your leg. You know?
So what I'm getting at is we're looking at something basically that's going to need quite a bit of sustenance, a lot of calories to sustain that body mass.
No, I agree. I agree.
So even if it were an herbivore or an omnivore and it ate vegetable matter as well, it couldn't remain discreet and not be seen in theory, could it? So what do you think it was? Well, you know,
because I'm the biggest skeptic going. I am if I can debunk it, I will do. You know,
well, debunk your own story.
And I'd love to debunk it. I really would. But I know what I saw. I know, and that's the kick in the shin as well. It's because I know what I saw, but I don't think I was ready to see what I saw. You know, if that makes sense. I don't know if it was from here. I don't know if it could have been extraterrestrial of some sort. I don't know because there's no way. Well, there is, because thinking on it, you know, back in the day, then Tolton Woods you're in the middle of fields, woods. You've got a river that runs all the way through, so you can, if you didn't want to be seen, you could do that. You know.
I would agree in part, and I think it's the same with what we're looking at in Forest of North Yorkshire. What we're talking about there, Mark, we'll jump from your story for too long, is 520 odd square miles of national park. Yeah. So in theory, something could remain elusive. I don't personally think it is living and breathing in those forests. I think folklore and legend and mythology tell us that it's always been here. It's ancient, and I think you're dealing with something similar with what you're talking about. I think
you're right. No, I think you're right, Paul. Because I've got. I mean, my belief is, you know, if you're close to something that I say they. If you're close to something that they don't want you to see, they'll release the big man to scare you away. You're getting too close. It's like Loch Ness, for instance. You know, we'll keep them out of the water, show them the Loch Ness monster. It keeps them away. But knowing now people are now, you have to see that, they're going to look even more. Yeah. So I don't think it, like you, I don't think it lives in, I don't know. You see, I don't think it's from here, but I don't know, because like you said, how could it not be seen? So it's either got to have materialized from somewhere or it's come from somewhere.
Well, I think the change in environment is a clue. A clue to a lot of the sightings, be it UFO, be it cryptid, because so many times there's one of the key ingredients. People say, I could feel all airs. There's some kind of electricity, some kind of flux of change going on within the atmosphere. Everything went silent, so it's almost as though we're being immersed in another environment, because and the actual environment that we're in has been pushed out like an air bubble underwater. For this thing to appear, for this thing to manifest and roam about, because too many people say everything suddenly felt different, and that just does not apply to the cryptid realm, should we say. It applies to the UFO sightings as well. I won't say in every case, but in many instances. So there's something else happening. Obviously, it's something that, I mean, I'm not a scientist, I'm the farthest thing away from a scientist, but it's something that we've got no knowledge of, that in our physics, or, you know, and I think it's worth considering.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, it's almost like the interdimensional, that sort of, like, you know, time warp sort of things, when people are walking, like we were saying before about my mum's friend who got, maybe she just went through and maybe one of them sort of little portals, and she was in a different time, the same place but a different time.
Well, there's a place round here, Mark, not far from here, called Killam. I mean, Steve Ashbridge will tell you, because Steve's all over the place. But all roads seem to lead to Killam. You'll see fat signposts and it says Killam. It used to be one of the biggest villages in the area, if not the biggest, many years ago. But I've got a story of a lady that was taking her children to school, driving through the village of Killam, and then suddenly a car's on a rough dirt track, and there's a wooden signpost that's saying kill 'em. And and then she ran out of it, and she's back onto tarmac. And that this is not a road that she'd never been on before. This was a school run, so something happened. It was some kind of, she's either lying or there's some kind of time slip, some kind of shift in the environment that took place. And this echoes back to what you've just said, the interdimensional aspect and worlds within worlds. I mean, you know, obviously we're talking about it in layman's terms here. I can't do it with a scientific background, but there's no doubt you don't have to be a scientist to realize that if people are describing these scenarios and these situations, then something of that ilk is going off.
No, I agree. Yeah. It's the more you think about it, the more I'm going crazy. The more I think about it, but like I said, I'm the biggest debunker. If I can think of a reason it not being what it is, I'm the first there. I'm the first in the queue to say it.
Well, isn't that good? That's good.
Again. Yeah.
Good? Your head's not that far in clouds that you are looking for answers. I mean, I've said to myself, probably only this last week, why am I seeing this stuff?
Yeah.
Why am I seeing it? Am I imagining it? I love to have witnesses with me when we see these things. And, you know, I'm not going to deny what I'm seeing. We've had some strange experiences up around Bempton. Despite COVID, I can take me one person with me and we can do some, well, I don't take them, it's separate cars, and we can do our exercise. And there's been a few strange things seen that have been corroborated by people in Scarborough on the phone 5 minutes after we've seen them. You know, but why are we seeing them? I think part of it is that we are actually in these locations. And when I was there were nobody else there bar me and this friend of mine were taking us exercise, because nobody wants to be in these places in middle at night. How many people do you think were in that wood that day when you were with your friends? Because you said it was summer. Do you think there'd have been?
We know that we were the only ones in the wood, because well, reason being when you go to Taunton Wood, you go down Car Lane, straight down Car Lane, and it's down a dirt road. You got a small little car park at the bottom, which is the smallest. No cars there, and then there's a park where kids play, and that was empty. There was nobody there. And then you go up the field it's probably about 3/4 of a mile up the field to get into the woods. We didn't see anybody, but for some reason you just know. It's one of them sort of woods where you just know, like the back of your hand. You just know every single thing about the wood, and that changed when I witnessed that thing, because it just didn't.
Have you had the appetite to go back as a mature man and take cameras in there and do a night vigil or anything like that?
I wouldn't. I've never gone in there at night time. I've never gone in there. I mean, I'd love to take, just so you can see that feeling that you get when you go in there. I took Janine, my wife, with me, and she said, before I even mentioned that, she went, "Oh God, it's like there's eyes on you everywhere in this wood." I'm thinking it's just weird. The wood is just
evoked by what you'd been talking about, or did you just sense something?
Say again.
Did you think that was evoked by what you'd been talking about, or did you genuinely sense something? How much of it was hyped up by the feeling and by the past experience, do you think?
I don't know.
No.
You see, because I don't know, to be honest, because as I said, the woods has always been the woods to me. That wood in general, you know, because it's one I've been in it all my life, so it's not really a thing. But since seeing that, I'm very reluctant to go back. I mean, I've been back, but I don't spend long in there when I do go back. I'd rather just get in, get out, and forget about it.
Just out of interest, I don't know whether, I mean, Les would tell you if you know, if we were talking to Les at this moment, that it is an incredibly tense and scary feeling. We've spent nights in these forests.
Yeah.
While we've been filming Wolfland and talking to witnesses, and well, I'm not saying some of them witnesses. Those witnesses, we didn't go in with a great gang of people. The witnesses, they couldn't settle all night. One of the guys is a really laid back, cool kind of guy. He was feeling the edginess of it. The other one, he just couldn't sit down. He were like a coiled spring all night. So you know, you can understand having that feeling.
Yeah, because it is straight. Because I took when I went there, I took Janine to the exact spot, because that fallen down tree is still there. It's still there. That fallen down tree. I can pinpoint the exact place I was stood at with a friend of mine. That's where we were. Even some of the rope swings are still there that we set up. Funnily enough, they're still there. Some of them.
You need to film this, Mark.
But when we went there, and I said, "This is where I saw it," and then I walked over to the path of where I saw it, and I said, "Janine, you stay there, and I'll show you where this was." And she said, "You got that close?" I'm thinking, I didn't get that close. It got that close to us. I didn't walk to it. That's where I'd stopped.
When it turned, Mark, did you get any sense of smell or anything?
I don't know, because I think at the time I was too engrossed in finding out what it was, more so than I think I was more in bewilderment, really. I thought I saw it thinking, so everything was going through my mind with, you know, it's not Chewbacca. You know, that's something still there. That's not supposed to be here.
Changing the environment and the grunt, the sound. You think to yourself, I wonder if that created this reverberation in your chest. It were obviously a byproduct of it, but different environment could have contributed to the effect it had on your body as well. You know, perhaps.
Could have done. It could have well have done. Thing is, what I was saying, because I've spoken to Deborah Hatswell about it, and I was saying, because of the size, it wasn't tall. It wasn't tall. So I'm thinking, was it a juvenile? But the color of the hair just didn't signify that it was a juvenile. It was dark grey. Light grey, dark grey with brown matted. It was matted. It wasn't like nice comb hair.
Right.
Yeah, it was like all matted. It had like almost a bare chest type thing. Not much hair on the chest, but enough.
Well, before we wrap this up, Mark, what colour was the skin underneath the fur?
Dark in colour, more like a grey, like a dark grey colour.
Yeah. So, well, do you know, Mark, it's been fascinating, because you've given us what you can of the Pendle, which hopefully we can speak to you when you're further into this documentary, or when then we can have the meat of what you've discovered. We've got this incredible account of your creature sighting, and I think we've covered quite a lot there, and I've really enjoyed speaking to you, Mark, and I don't think we can sort of touch on anything else, can we? I look forward to when you come up to Bempton again, because I know we've spent time there.
Yeah, I will be doing. Well, when we're allowed to get hotels, I'll be back up. I'm not staying in a tent again. No, it's but that night, funnily enough, the last night we were there. This is not a whole change of subject. This last night we were there, we were woke up by something opening our tent. We heard the zip. All of us heard the zip open on our tent.
And there were four.
We got one of them. Yeah.
There were four, weren't there? The four of you in tent.
Four, yeah. But we're in one of them separate tents. So there's two in one side and there's two in the other. And then in the porchway in the middle, you got all your stuff, your belongings and stuff. But the tent inside, the outer zip, not the inner zip, the outer zip opened, and obviously I thought, well, I'm thinking, and that we should have stayed another 2 nights, but I think we went after that. I think we that morning we shot off. I thought, I'm not playing that game.
Mark, I look forward to the next visit, and we also look forward to talking to you more about the Pendle Witches and any other research you've got. And
I'll have a lot more next time, and I won't be scared of showing it either, because Tom isn't here to stop me, and I'll just no, but it's been good talking to you both. It's gonna be great.
Thank you very much, Mark. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.